Why objectivity? What about it is so important? Why not just stick to our comfort zone? Why not just live guided by our assumptions, biases, and stereotypes? Why make the extra effort that it takes to be objective? The answer isn't that complicated. It's because bias holds us back. It holds us back from being able to make objective and rational decisions. Bias corrupts our decision-making ability, and it influences our behavior. This isn't rocket science, but plain observation that can be validated through everyday life. Biases can cause people to dismiss scientific data, facts, and other relevant evidence if it contradicts the stance or claim of that bias. Objectivity allows us to assess and evaluate circumstances, conditions, and paths of action without bias. Objective empowerment is focused on helping others to overcome bias as an obstacle to objective thinking. Overcoming bias is about not allowing bias to influence our behavior and our thinking. It's about aspiring to a better version of ourselves, one that brings objectivity to decision-making and problem-solving, one that thinks more independently, one that works better with others and teams. Objectivity and bias have the power to affect our lives on so many levels. Not every bias has the power to influence our behavior, and not every bias results in the same consequence to the person, their neighbors, or society. Some biases are significant, and some are less meaningful. But beneath the surface, biases restrict our freedom to think objectively and rationally, our freedom to think clearly without the distortion that bias brings. This kind of freedom, an inner freedom, this human aspiration, is not specific to one country or one region of the planet. It's unrealistic to say that people should be 100% objective. That shouldn't be the goal. Requiring perfection brings its own set of restrictions and produces a hyper-emotional and narrow-minded way of thinking. Our goal should be to have an ability to harness objective thought and be uninfluenced by bias when important decision-making needs to be done. We should strive to objectively assess and evaluate the circumstances and evidence tied to events, without bias distorting that process. We should strive to communicate effectively, so that both the message and the understanding are not distorted by biases held by either the speaker or the other participants of the conversation. We should aspire to pause and reflect before making impulsive decisions that defy logic and rational thinking. Information shouldn't be believed without researching the material we claim to believe. Until we understand what we do and what we don't believe, without influence, that's when we come to a deeper understanding around who we are and what we prioritize, both in our minds and through our actions and behavior. Each of us has biases that, to one degree or another, dictate our behavior. The goal is not to eradicate bias. That would be like eradicating greed or envy. Instead, it's about avoiding bias where we can, and recognizing bias for what it is, not giving it the power to impact our decision-making and our behavior. The value that objective thinking brings to our lives cannot be understated. Like many important things in life, a commitment to objective thinking doesn't happen instantly, and it's not a singular event. It doesn't happen overnight, so we can't expect it to. It takes effort, and it takes time. But the rewards of objective thinking are undeniable. Make no doubt about it, it's important for people to question. Healthy questioning is, rightly so, healthy. When we question, we're also looking for answers. We're searching for solutions. We're examining what fits and what doesn't, based on logic, and based on an honest evaluation of the available evidence. We reach conclusions by being able to evaluate information and evidence through a decision-making process, and then we come to a point of view and an understanding of reality, either around a topic or around a series of events. It goes without saying that in 2021, we're living in an incredibly polarized world. People are screaming over digital media and in person about what's real and what's fake, what's truth and what are lies, about what democracy is and what it isn't, about what racism is and what it isn't, about what the police's function is in society, and countless other issues. Families are literally fighting amongst themselves, putting politics over their own loved ones. There are huge chunks of the world that believe that the COVID-19 virus is not real. People are questioning science around climate change. There are deep fake videos in which people are being tricked into believing that what they are watching is real. What's very clear is that there are groups of people that are spending enormous amounts of time, effort, and money to give birth to conspiracy theories that divide populations. The goal of these is to deceive, manipulate, and change behavior. They work to attack each of us in our most sacred space. Objective evaluation, decision-making, and problem-solving can affect your life, your health, your professional success, your relationships, even your well-being and general happiness. It impacts it all. Why jeopardize the important role that objectivity plays, not just for ourselves, but for our communities and our planet? Objectivity is one of humanity's most valuable tools. It's time to take a hard look at the source of bias and how, individually and collectively, we can overcome it. And we can. Welcome to this series of reflections around objectivity and bias. Objective empowerment is about sharing perspective. It's about introspection, observation, and self-reflection. It's about our choices when it comes to language and our interpretation of reality. Objective empowerment embraces all of these concepts, but it's also about empowering ourselves to improve our decision-making and problem-solving abilities.